Within the first 15 or so minutes of Suburbicon, you could be forgiven for thinking that you accidentally walked into the wrong movie. The trailers for this film paint a deceptively rambunctious picture, not in the same sense as The Snowman, where they outright lie to you, and there's certainly no mystery as to why they left out what they did. I'm going to skirt the line of my own rules and do the honor of opening the mystery box because 1, it's not technically a spoiler since it's literally the first thing that happens in the movie, and 2, if you leave Suburbicon with a sour taste in your mouth, I can almost guarantee you this will be why. But first, a short history lesson. During the post-World War II baby boom, the spike in population, especially those of middle-class families, left the United States in dire need of places to put people. Enter William Levitt, an opportunistic and very racist real estate developer whose company led the charge of cheap, fast, mass-produced assembly line housing development that eventually became known as the suburbs. I say this because not only is it the period of time in which Suburbicon takes place, but a significant portion of the movie revolves around the integration of an African-American family into the almost exclusively white suburban environment. Now, I'm all for some historical accuracy, but based on popular reaction, it would seem as though this sensibility is neither what people expected nor what people wanted out of this film. And it makes a certain degree of sense why they kept this detail out of the trailers because it's easily the worst part of the movie. Not that it's entirely without purpose, it's meant to act as a scapegoat that the residents of Suburbicon concern themselves with while the main plot is ongoing and to serve as an outward satire of outrage culture and its roots in the pettiness of privileged white people feeling encroached upon by solutions to problems that they caused in the first place. Not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, but it's a brand of social commentary operating largely independent of another much more prominent storyline that is itself a completely different form of social commentary. On their own, both of these narratives are perfectly functional, but since one is given considerably greater attention, the secondary storyline is compressed into general uselessness and rendered merely distracting, which leaves Suburbicon as the worst type of period piece, where it doesn't actually need to be a period piece. The racially charged portions of the story don't amount to anything because racism is never the point, and whatever purpose was actually behind these scenes becomes lost in a storm of mixed messages. What we're essentially left with is a rock-solid 90-minute dark comedy crime film randomly intercut with scenes from the movie Detroit. To trim the fat from the steak and speak of the main storyline, I was in that respect quite satisfied with Suburbicon. As a deconstruction of the idyllic image of family life and how it's been warped over time, it's not necessarily groundbreaking, but it succeeds on its own modest terms. George Clooney's direction, generally being of very mixed results, is competently executed and has no glaring flaws to speak of outside of the one that I've already spent nearly half this fucking review babbling about. The screenplay, written by the Coen brothers along with Clooney and Grant Heslov, which might explain a bit, even too many 5-star chefs can still manage to spoil a pot, can be generally counted upon to populate itself with compelling intrigue and interesting characters. The darkly comedic tone, while leaning much heavier on the darkness than the comedy, is still paced in such a way that balance is maintained and the transition between them is smoothly engineered. The dialogue is great and benefits from being delivered with the trademark cynical bitterness of a Coen brothers film, which kept more in line with the tone becoming progressively more serious as the stakes of the film gradually opened up before snapping shut during a chilling monologue at the climax. Matt Damon does a great job portraying the exterior of an extremely flawed but determined man as he watches the consequences of his actions destroy the lives of those around him. Even though Oscar Isaac's role was relatively brief, his performance was absolutely fantastic and his scenes were a genuine joy to watch. The other performances, along with the score and cinematography, weren't extraordinary by any means, but they were all still good. Unfortunately, the massive issue of the film's competing storylines holds it back to such a degree that I can only give it the bare minimum of a recommendation, and it might just as easily behoove you to wait until this one makes its way out of theaters, because even though the good parts of Suburbicon are very good, as a sum of its parts, its inconsistence could reasonably constitute a death blow.